What I would do, just a few minutes, I'll just share with you some 4 things we could do to make our life more positive, 4 things we could do to put into practice some of these spiritual principles. Sometimes when we read books on spiritual life, we read the lives of these great mystics and saints, inspiring as it all is, it's not immediately apparent of what I must do in my own life to go anywhere close to the heights that these great ones attained. Books, when we read these great books often give general principles, and applying those principles to our own specific life situation is a challenge. So what I hope to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes is to share with you some of the practical things we could do to put into practice some of these very abstract, apparently abstract principles. And I sometimes call this the 4 simple exercises. Of these 4, there are 2 things we need to forget and 2 things we need to do. That sounds pretty simple. At least in the telling and listening, it's simple. But we can figure out whether it's simple or not. So first thing, let me just deal with 2 things. It's very helpful for us to forget in life. The first thing to forget is forget all the good that you have done to other people. Continue doing good, help people who are in need, be kind, be affectionate, be friendly. But once you have done all these wonderful things, don't carry their weight on your shoulder, just forget about them. That's very helpful, because if we are too conscious about our own goodness, it just increases our own ego. It also sets up expectations. It's something like if you invite your friend to your birthday party, and then when your friend's birthday comes and you are not invited, then you're offended. You're like, well, I invited a friend and then I'm not invited. So you do a good turn and then you keep it in mind. It then sets up expectations in your mind. So in spiritual life, it's very helpful that we keep on doing all the good that we can, and then just forget about it. It's like, can doing good, can helping others become my second nature? Just like the sun, when it rises in the morning, gives light and heat. The sun doesn't have to say, let me give light and heat. That's just the nature of the sun to do so. Exactly in the same way, can it just become my own nature to do good, to help, to be kind, to be friendly, without me having to feel that I have done something really special? So that's the first thing to forget, very helpful. Forget, do good and just forget about it. Don't expect anything in return. The second thing to forget might be a little bit more difficult than the first one, is forget all the bad that other people have done to you. That can be tough. That can be really tough, because if we just look in our hearts, we might discover there is so much of, may not be like profound, but often these slight grievances and anger about some members of our family or friends or your colleagues at workplace, something you're unhappy about, and we just carry it in our heart, and it doesn't do any good. I mean, it's so much better if you are really upset with someone, it's so much better to just go and land the blow on that person and just have a good fight. I'm not saying you should do it. What I'm saying is, that is preferable to not doing anything and just carry that anger right inside you. It doesn't help. So don't fight. That was just a comparison I just mentioned. So if we carry this grudge against people, it actually hurts us and doesn't hurt them at all. That's why Mark Twain once said, always forgive your enemies. There is nothing that irritates them more than that. So if someone is trying to provoke you or irritate you and you get irritated, you really help that person. If someone is trying to provoke you or irritate you and you refuse to get irritated, you refuse to get angry, that's strength. And so, if someone has really done you some harm, it needs tremendous amount of strength to just say, I forgive you. And just not just say it, you actually forgive it, in the sense that you don't carry it in your heart. If we believe in the idea of karma, then it's really very easy to figure this out. It's like if someone, let's say, if someone brings you the mailman, the postman, if brings you a letter which really brings very bad news, that upsets you. Now you can't beat up the postman for doing it. Postman is just a messenger. Exactly in the same way, if someone has hurt me, brought me pain and suffering in life, it's easy for us to get angry with that person. But that doesn't solve the problem. It's like if someone hates me and I hate in return, there are really double the hate I've added into the world. And so, if someone has brought some pain to me, it's possible to see that, well, that person was only a messenger. That this was something that was to come to me at some point in life, and that has come to me now. Now, I'm not suggesting that you invite pain or that you court pain. That's not the idea. And it's good. All of us must try to protect ourselves from any kind of pain and suffering. But in spite of our efforts, in spite of no fault or provocation from our side, if some pain still comes, it's so much more helpful to see and not beat up the messenger. You can use the same principle even to the good that you do to other person. If you have helped someone, you can see that that person's good karma invited that help, and you are only a messenger. So you don't really have to feel too great about yourself for just carrying to the other person what that person deserved. It's something like if you order something from, say, Amazon.com, and as I often do, if you're a chronic online shopper, sometimes you may order things and just forget about them. And after 10 days or 15 days, when the mailman shows up with the parcel, and you don't say, oh, it's such a great gift and thank you. You don't do that either, because you're paid for it. You've got something which you're paid for. Exactly in the same way, when you help someone, that someone has done some good karma to deserve that help. You are only a mailman to do that. Anyway, these are the ways to kind of think about it. But forgetting these two things, forgetting the good that you have done to others and forgetting the bad that others have done to you, is tremendously helpful in our spiritual practice. It prevents us from being egoistic. It helps to kind of it's the riding the wave. I mean, there are ups and downs in life are very natural, very common. No matter how much people may try to show that everything is just hunky-dory in their lives. Some people are good at hiding what's going on, some people are not so good. But the reality is that everyone's life, no matter east or west, north or south, everyone's life has ups and downs. If we are able to forget these two things, we will be able to deal with these ups and downs in a more mature way. We will be able to not get overwhelmed by the pain and sorrow in our lives. Neither will we get puffed up with just ego and pride by the supposedly good things that we do to other people. So, two things to forget. Now, two things to remember. The first thing to remember is something so obvious and yet something that we don't want to dwell on, is the reality that everything is transitory. Everything is constantly changing. Nothing remains constant. And we can see that. We can see that in our own lives. When we were born, we just weighed a few pounds. Now we weigh much more. So physically, obviously, things have changed. They're changing every day. Even mentally, the kind of thoughts, emotions, feelings, fears, ideas that we had as children, as teenagers, as we were young, when in middle age, as we grow older, keeps on changing all the time. So physically we are changing, mentally we are changing. There's a lot of change occurring here. And of course there's a lot of change occurring in the world outside as well. Recognizing this change is very important. Remembering that nothing lasts. Remembering, and this is not a very pleasant topic, but remembering that one day we'll die. It's very helpful practice to begin every day with thinking this could be the last day of my life. And one day we are going to be right. We may not want that day to come sooner, but one day we are going to be right. And it's very helpful. Now think about a person, let's say, this is just imagine that, say, God comes to some person and says, within a week you're going to die. What would be the state of mind of that person? When there's nothing you can do about it. God himself has come and said you're going to die. So, where else can you go to seek for help? So, obviously, you could imagine maybe a day or two this person is going to be upset, just upset. But once you know the inevitability of something that's going to happen, then in those remaining 5 days, you would not want to be nasty with someone. You wouldn't want to hate anyone. Because you know it's all going to go away anyway. If there's something that you treasure and a friend comes and says, could you please lend it to me? You're not going to say, no, this is mine. Nothing is yours because you just are going to leave everything behind. Within those next 4 or 5 days, this person will be kind to animals. You wouldn't want to hate animals. This person will, everything around this person will be just blessing everything, be kind, loving. Selfishness, hatred, jealousy, all this would go away because all of these, everything in all our fights and everything appears so petty when you see against the background of these real basic realities of life. Now we should recognize that this person was at least lucky because God came and said you're going to die after a week. We are not even that lucky. We don't know. We don't know. We simply don't know. It could be 5 minutes, could be 5 hours, 5 days, maybe 50 years. We don't know. Even those who call themselves believers, even those of us who are very sure that after death we are going to be with the Lord, even those of us who are very certain that we are going to go to heaven, are in no hurry to go to heaven. No hurry to meet the Lord. So we have to be, you see, we have to check the extent of our faith. If I truly believe I'm going to be with the Lord after I die, why do I want to prolong that event? So this is just the reality of where things are. Now, recognizing that things are transitory is actually very helpful. It's like you go to a market and say buy, like these roses, you go and buy some roses outside, and then you know that these roses are not going to last forever. They're going to be there for a few days, then the petals are going to dry, they're going to fall off. But because you know it's transitory, because it's not going to last longer, then you bring it home, you cut the stems properly, you put them in fresh water, make sure that there's a good sunshine, and then you're able to enjoy the beauty of those flowers. But after 4 or 5 days, when the petals dry off and they fall, you don't cry because you knew that was going to happen. But because you knew it was transitory, those 4 or 5 days that the flowers were, you gave them your full attention. They brought you so much joy. Now, why don't we look at the members of our family, our friends, as like flowers? Because every one of us is a flower. And just like these flowers are going to wither away and dry after some time, we are going to go away also. But if we recognize that just as the drying up of the flowers will not bring about regret, since we knew that was going to happen, the passing away of people around us will not bring a regret or pain, because we knew that was going to happen. But when we remember this, as long as these flowers are members of our family, friends, others are around us, we'll take good care of them. If there is joy in the heart, this flower will be blooming. If you say a kind word, you smile to a friend, that flower will be blooming also. There will be so much sunshine and joy when everyone is taking care of everyone else. So, recognizing that life is transitory is actually an experience that can bring so much joy. It's completely counterintuitive. You kind of think like, if everything is temporary, all fun will go out of life. Actually, it's just the opposite. If you remember that everything is temporary, everything is transitory, you will be able to appreciate things better. You'll be able to understand the value of things better. You'll be really, try it out once. You will find you will enjoy life more. So, first thing to remember, everything is transitory. The second thing to remember, in the midst of all this change, there is one being who doesn't change, and that is God. So, it's not just all change, that behind all the change, behind all the temporary things, there is this one reality, one truth, one being who is always there. And so these four things, 2 things to forget, 2 things to remember. If we are able to practice it, even if we can't do it perfectly, even if you succeed only 10% in putting it into practice, even then you will find it will bring about a transformation, a change which you can recognize in your own personal life. And if you are able to practice it, even people around you will see that you have changed and for the better. So these are the 4 things I think it might be helpful to keep in mind. And then I'll just say one more thing and then I'm done. This is one verse from a 14th or 15th century text called the Panchadashi. It's a Vedanta text. And there is the first time I read about it from my teacher, some of us, from 4 or 5 months, we were studying under him. And it was so fascinating. We loved that verse so much that we got posters printed of it and hung it in every room of our monastery back in India. So this is that verse. So I'll say this is how it goes in Sanskrit, and then I will tell you the translation. Yat abhavi na tad bhavi, bhavi chet na tad anyatha, iti chinta vishapnoyam bodho brahma nivartakaha. It's actually pretty simple, and when I tell you the translation, you will see it's so obvious. It simply means this: that which is going to happen will happen. That which is not going to happen will not happen. Knowing this, wise ones become free from the poison of anxiety and free from all delusion. Anxiety, see, there is so much of anxiety we labor under. And anxiety is, what is the difference between fear and anxiety? Fear has an object. For instance, say, I'm afraid of snakes. So I have fear of snakes. When I have a fear of something, then I know what I can do about it. If I'm afraid of snakes, if there is fear of snakes, I must keep away from snakes. But if I have just anxiety, or what? So anxiety doesn't have any object, and that's why it's problematic. So one of the ways of dealing with anxiety is to convert it into fear. In other words, just find out what you are anxious about. Because if your anxiety has an object, then there is something you can do about it. Now, therefore, in this verse, this anxiety is considered like poison. Because if there is an anxious mind, just like a poison eats up the innards of the body, the anxiety eats up, takes away all fun from life, takes away all joy from life. So, if we want to get rid of this poison of anxiety from our lives, if we want to get free from all delusion, then we just have to remember something which is so obvious. That which is going to happen will happen. That which will not happen will not happen. Now, this doesn't mean I must sit in a corner and say, well, that which is going to happen will happen. What it means is this. That in every situation, I need to do the best I can. Carry out all your duties and responsibilities in life as best you can. Having done your best, what else can you do? You can't do better than your best. You have done your best. Then you just step back and say, now what is going to happen is going to happen. What's not going to happen, not going to happen. Because being anxious about something doesn't really change any outcome. For instance, now, I can Suppose this were the, of course, does it snow here?
No.
No, okay. In Boston, one of the things that, the example I give when I speak there is that, so, in the midst of winter, just getting worried, will there be snow tomorrow? Is it going to, will I be able to drive to work tomorrow? Now, this anxiety really doesn't help at all, because if it's going to snow, it's going to snow. If it's not going to snow, it's not going to snow. My being anxious about it will not change the outcome. Actually, come to think about it, all of you who are interested in sports, if you go to watch any game, everyone was kind of cheering for their team. And everyone is anxious, like, will my team win or lose? Now, anxiety of the fans doesn't change the outcome at all. It doesn't change, that's it. So anxiety doesn't help. And so if we simply, this is also very helpful in life, because sometimes when we are not able to meditate, we find it difficult to pray, is because the mind is so anxious. So if we carry out all our duties and responsibilities the best way we can, and then just step back and say, now what's going to happen will happen, what will not happen will not happen. So